Hello and welcome to vChat episode number 37. My name is David Davis from virtualizationsoftware.com.
And my name's Simon Seagrave from techhead.co.
And I'm Eric Siebert from vSphereland.com.
Thanks, guys, for joining me. Today we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, but first let's just kind of go around the room and, what have you been up to? Simon, take it away.
Yeah, I'll kick things off. Well, okay, so since we last spoke, been busy working on preparing the demos for EMC World. So that was a lot of good fun. That was a good month or two ago now. Prepping for VMworld and a few other events that we've got coming up at the moment on the work front. So yeah, doing a lot of content, collateral creation at the moment. Not so much around slide decks or anything like that. It's more actually interactive demos. So this is a new type of demo that we're trying to get sort of traction on within the company. So a bit more than just a video, but obviously not a full-blown production environment that you can go in and do anything with. So something in between the two there, where you can have an assistant or virtual assistant take you through and show you all the various features and functions of a particular product. So I've been working on that quite a bit. Obviously, we've got VMworld coming up, some pretty cool stuff there, and just trying to get the blog back on track again. Trying to create a little bit of content around that. Trying to make it a little bit more regular. I've been sort of adventuring with the creation of videos a little bit more so than your traditional blog posts. Still doing blog posts, but quite enjoying doing screencasts, videos, that type of thing as well. So that seems to be well received. So I'll probably keep continuing to do that. So that's everything from this end. Enjoying the great British summer at the moment. It's been quite warm, a little bit of rain as expected, but. Apart from that, I haven't seen anyone I haven't attended any shows for a long time. There was the London VMUG last week that I didn't end up attending. There was a tube strike or a rail strike, so that made it kind of tough getting up to London. So I didn't bother with that. But no, apart from that, I think my next big meet-up with people may or may not be VMworld San Fran. Don't know whether I'm going yet, but... and apart from that, I've finally got the home lab span back up again, which is great. Because it is summer over here in my office, I've only got one window I can open. Literally, I've got one machine running. I did have 3 machines, but I've scaled that back to just one in my lab now, just to keep temperatures down a little bit. So that's everything from my side. What about you guys? What have you been up to?
Eric, what have you been up to?
Me? I've been moving. That's been fun. I relocated again from Colorado to Arizona, back to Colorado. So I'm back here now, back in the man cave and that, where I did the previous vChats. Still trying to get settled in, and that, my office is still a mess. I barely got computers up and running, networking, all that stuff. Home labs all in boxes and switches. I got to find cables and all that. So it'll be a while before I get that up and running again. Just kind of get the essentials up, and beyond that, trying to get settled in.
So what's it
work-wise?
Eric, what's it like moving back into your old house again? Does it feel strange after being away and then coming back again and having to reset it all up again?
Yeah, deja vu.
Yeah,
it's moving from a completely different environment, and the house we were in Arizona was much bigger than that, and kind of had to squeeze back into this one, and that had a lot more space there, so kind of accumulated a lot more stuff. So trying to, it was when we first moved in here, it was box city everywhere and that, and I could barely unpack things because boxes were everywhere and that, so that took a while to get through all that. But yeah, it's kind of where I've been for a long time, so real comfortable with it, and it's kind of good to be back.
Yeah, you've got that wood paneling back again as well.
Yep, and got to get all my Old West decorations back up and all that, and gotta get this whole thing set up. Take some time. Beyond that, work. There's a lot around storage. A lot of cool things with things like VVOLs. Been doing a lot of collateral around that. At HP, we've had a pretty good implementation with 3-part VVOLs, so I've been kind of managing all the kind of collateral efforts, go-to-market efforts around VVOLs. supporting a lot of events, VMUGs. We've been doing VMUGs. I was at the Kansas City VMUG a few weeks ago. I'm going to the Indy VMUG next week, Chicago in September, and of course VMworld coming up. So that'll be the big show. I got 4 speaking sessions at VMworld, so that'll be a fun one. And that to run through all that. I know sessions kind of tie you down in that, and there's a lot of prep to doing them. So have to start scrambling to get all that.
Are they HP related sessions, Eric, or are they any independent ones in there, or are they all through HP?
Yeah, I submitted 3 through HP. One was, kind of the technical, educational one, not really product related in that. And that one made it through the normal process, the normal voting process. I was surprised because it seems like almost nobody gets things through the normal process. So that was my top 10 things you must know about implementing VVOLs session that made it through that. 2 of the other ones were through our sponsor sessions. That we're allowed at 4 sponsor sessions with our sponsorship. So Storage had 2 of those. And then one other one was actually one that VMware invited me to, was a technical panel on VVOLs. So I'll be participating in that along with, I think, 4 or 5 other vendors. I think NetApp, EMC, Dell, and one other is on that. So that'll be another one there. So lots to do to get ready for VMworld.
No, fantastic. And that's really heartening, actually, to hear that, one of your normal sessions, i.e. one of your non-sponsored sessions, still got through as well. So that's good. That's good to see they're still being accepted as well. So, no, good on you.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked. I was expecting the Dear John rejection letters for all of them and that. I was like, oh, wow. Because, if you look at that whole process and the amount of sessions that VMware takes, and not a huge amount of sessions there. I think it's about 400, and VMware has a lot of them that you typically see these days. Very little, especially a lot of the independents that submit sessions and that. Those are always good sessions. You see very little make them through this year in these latest years and that, which is kind of disappointing in that because there's a lot of good content. And VMware is so broad now with so many different topics to cover. And that they almost have to take up a lot of those session slots just to cover all that. So it's good to see some of the other sessions get in whenever possible.
I think that's where the V Brown Bag crew have really stepped up and sort of filled that gap. It really gives the independents and the bloggers and everything an opportunity to sort of present at VMworld, albeit not on the big stage, but still quite a significant audience. With their pop-up sessions that they do there and the recordings from that. So I think that's a great initiative as well. So, those of you listening to this who perhaps didn't have their sessions accepted this year or in past years, definitely reach out to the, like I say, the V Brown Bag team and see whether you could get a speaking slot at VMworld at one of their recorded sessions. That's definitely worth doing and worth watching as well.
Yep, for sure. There's tons and tons of good people with good knowledge, good experience in that it's if you look at the overall submissions and that, I think I was counting through just looking at the numbers from the voting catalogs and that there was, I thought, about 2,500 submissions this year and about 400 slots. So significant amount of sessions that don't make it in that. So it's always good to see something pick up the slack and have another platform for getting that information to people.
Yeah, in fact, I was at Cisco Live and I saw Alistair Cook and talked to him for a while. And he owns the Brown Bags and he's doing the tech talks. He did those tech talks at Cisco Live, and he said he's doing them at VMworld as well, and a bunch of VMUGs too. He even said his Auto Lab. He's got it updated for vSphere 6, and now it can even deploy OpenStack, which I was like, he's doing some really cool stuff. So, yeah, that's awesome, Eric. VVOLs is really a hot topic, and that's, in fact, going to be the topic of today's show. We decided.
But before we move on to that, David, let's tell us what have you been up to?
Well, I've been creating a lot of vSphere 6 training. I launched my Pluralsight vSphere 6 What's New course, and now I'm doing the vSphere 6 Fundamental series, which is broken up into 8 different courses. So I'm launching those, as I complete them. So far the first 2 are out on install and config and networking, and now I'm moving on to storage and then performance and monitoring and so forth. So For those who don't know, the VCP 6 is now broken up into 2 different exams. So there's the fundamentals, the VCP fundamentals exam, which is what I'm working on, and then there's specializations for each of the different VCP, topics: data center virtualization, cloud, desktop, which is called workforce mobility or something. Anyway, so that's what's been keeping me busy. I've also been doing a series of online events called megacasts on different topics. We did a megacast on hyperconvergence and flash storage, and got another one coming up on April 29th on data protection. So between the training and the megacast events and just getting ready for VMworld, it's been pretty busy. As you can tell, I recently moved my office, just like Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked a different view from the last time. So you just moved in a different location in the house, or?
Yeah, they're actually building a brand new house right next to where my office was, over the garage, and so it's just constant banging. So temporarily, I've moved up here into the 3rd floor, but I might just stay. I like it so much. There's enough room for like a big screen TV and kind of like Eric's man room there. So
cool.
I might have my own soon once I get all this chaos in order. So you guys want to move on to today's big topic?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's talk VVOLs.
Okay. So I'll ask the first dumb question, I guess. Eric, what is a VVOL, a VMware Virtual Volume?
Yeah, so if you look at what it is, it's essentially replaces VMFS. So if you're familiar with how it's done today, your VM is a bunch of files on a VMFS file system, which exists on a LUN on the storage array. With VVOLs, we do away with VMFS, and VMs are essentially stored directly on the storage array as objects. We're not creating LUNs on the storage array anymore. vSphere can now store those VMs directly on the storage array in storage containers that are created on the storage array, and all the kind of allocation of space is done automatically, kind of as needed in that. So we're not carving out a huge chunk of disk space and giving it to VMware for VMFS volumes. We're basically just creating the space on the backend storage array as VMs are created. A VM basically consists of multiple VVOLs in that. It's not really a one-on-one relationship there. At a minimum, a VM will have 2 virtual volumes. You have your config virtual volume, and that contains a number of traditional files that we're used to on VMFS. You'll have your configuration data in there, like the VMX was. Some metadata information. If you're familiar with virtual disks, they all had metadata files. That's stored in there. The log files are stored in there. So that's a config vVol. Can be up to 4 gig in size is the limit. That'll vary based on how multiple things on kind of logs and what's stored in that config vVol. It'll kind of grow up to 4 gig as needed. And then for every virtual disk that you have on a VM, that will have its own vVol. And then from that point, there'll be some additional vVols. So if you power the VM on when you're binding the VM to your virtual volumes, what happens is another vVol gets created, just like today with a swap file, the vSwap file. You'll have a swap vVol created. And then for every snapshot you take, if you do snapshots of VMs, now the snapshot mechanism moves to the storage array. So if you take a snapshot in the traditional manner in the vSphere client, you're actually taking an array snapshot now. There's no option to do that in vSphere. It's automatically done on the back-end storage array. So a snapshot vVol will be taken for every snapshot that you take in vSphere, up to the limit of 32 snapshots. And again, if you select memory state as well, it'll create a memory state vVol as well. So VM, basically all consists of multiple components, kind of like it did with VMFS. They're just stored differently without the VMFS file system directly on the storage array, and vVols basically in a storage container on the array, which essentially is typically the whole capacity of the storage array. We're not allocating space anymore. So that's kind of the fundamentals of what a vVol is.
And just to confirm, all that workload isn't done at the host, the ESXi host level at all. It's all done at the storage array. So the creation, maintenance of vVols is offloaded.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal there, is to kind of bring together the storage administration into vSphere, and so anything you do there gets offloaded back onto the storage array, and kind of a different mechanism for doing all those typical operations.
So, Eric, in order to use VVOLs, what are the requirements? Do you need vSphere 6 and you need a whole new SAN?
No, not necessarily. You need a whole new SAN, but you do need vSphere 6.
Okay.
And one thing about VVOLs, it's not a feature, so it's not something licensed in vSphere 6. It's actually part of the architecture, so it's available in any vSphere edition. Eventually VVOLs will replace VMFS, and that VMware doesn't keep two of anything around. It may be years down the road, but eventually VMFS will go away, and it'll just be VVOLs. And you need a storage array that's capable of supporting VVOLs, and it could be, in a lot of cases, just a firmware upgrade, and that supports the new VASTA provider, and the VASTA 2.0 specification. And if you look at on day one, there was only 4 vendors certified, so there's a lot of vendors playing catch up there. And I checked last week, and I think there's only 8 vendors right now that are certified. There's a special VMware HCL category for VVOLs. If you go there, it'll show you there's a lot of smaller arrays that's kind of supported, and some of the biggers like NetApp and Dell and HP supported. So yeah, your array has to support it, and then from there, it's really up to each individual vendor to dictate what capabilities they want to support on the storage array. So things like thin provisioning, snapshots, dedupe, anything you want to flush up as a capability to build into profiles via the vSphere policy-based management. The storage array would pass to vSphere to be able to put those into policies. Kind of one notable absent there is a replication, which isn't currently supported in the VASTA 2 specification. That'll probably come later on. So things like SRM, VMSC, and all that, anything that require replication isn't really supported with VVOLs today. So you'd want to stick with VMFS if that's the case.
So you need vSphere 6 though?
Gotta have that. And the one thing I've had a lot of people asking about, are there any VSAs that support it? Because people want to try it, and unless you have the storage array that supports it, you can't try it out really. So unfortunate thing, there are no VSAs that really support it today. VMware has a simulator they use in-house, and it's unfortunate, no VSAs. I know on our end, on HP, our store virtual VSA doesn't support it yet. It's a roadmap item in that. So it'd be nice at some point if one of the VSAs picked up support so we could try it in our home labs and play around with it and things like that. It'd be cool to get some hands-on, and people that don't have those arrays that support it, you could do it with VSA at some point.
Yeah, same on the EMC side of things. So you might have, well, you may or may not have noticed recently there was a launch of Project Liberty that was announced at EMC World. So something called a VNX, which is a virtualized VNX instance. So as with the VNX simulator previously, it's not designed for production use at all. It's used for development and what have you, type environments, for lab environments. But that doesn't have VVOLs yet, but that is earmarked apparently for Q3, maybe, hopefully. So
cool.
That would be interesting to get a bit of hands-on time with it, like you say, Eric, through the VSAs.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot there to learn because it is pretty different. There's a lot of different components that you don't have with traditional implementation, with your protocol endpoints, your storage containers, your VAST provider, and things like that. That on the VVOLs themselves. If you're not familiar with VVOLs today, there's a lot of new things you got to learn about it. So it'd be nice to have something like that where you can kind of get some stick time with it and play around with it. Because it's one of those things where I think people are just really going to dip their toe in the pool and slowly try it out and get some experience with it, some comfort level with it. The migration path to VVOLs from VMFS is storage vMotion. That's really the only way to go from VMFS to VVOLs. I think Veeam has a quick migration they do. It's essentially, I think, a storage vMotion, though, and that just kind of moving the VM over. But that's the migration path to VVOLs or back is through storage vMotion or any type of cold migration that you might have to do.
That's not too bad, I guess. That means at least you can do it in a controlled manner then, I guess, rather than flicking the switch and taking the whole thing out if you do experience problems. Yeah, you just can't do it in bulk. So if you want to move everything over, and that the storage arrays will support both on the same array. You're carving up LUNs for VMFS, and then typically the storage container would occupy the rest of the array where you can create your VVOLs.
Eric, what do storage admins think about VVOLs? Is it Is it taking away their control? Do they want to get their six shooter like yours there and protect and
Yeah.
expand?
Yeah, those politics always come into play, the turf wars and that. And, we saw that with vSwitches and that, the network admins didn't want to give you that many ports. They didn't want to put all those VLANs into them and that. I think it's going to be the same way with VVOLs, is the storage admins essentially giving up a lot of control. I think the end result is better in that, but there is a lot of control that the storage admin is going to be giving up, and not managing things and not having visibility sometimes into the VVOL stuff. But it's one of those things. I think if you work with storage admins and you make them understand the benefits, you make them understand the architecture. There are command line tools, like in our arrays, we have command line tools that a storage admin can use to see VVOLs. We developed command specific on the storage array side to be able to kind of interact with those VVOL objects on the storage arrays. Now, on the management, you really don't want to be doing on the storage array, because the whole purpose of this is to shift everything to vSphere. So you don't want the storage admin to really be monkeying with those VVOLs on the back end and that. But there are some tools that you can give to kind of give them some insight into what's the VVOLs of the array. I know on our end we purposely mask all those VVOL objects into our console, so the storage admin doesn't have to see those thousands of objects that get created. But via our command line tools, provide the capability to kind of see all those and interact with the different VVOL objects.
So one of the things to watch for is, I think you mentioned earlier, is the scalability of the array, like the number of VVOLs that it can support. Is that something that admins need to watch out for? I mean, if they have an old array, they upgrade the firmware, maybe that old array just can't support the number of VVOLs that their infrastructure will require?
Yeah, because typically block storage arrays aren't used to managing that number of objects and scale like that. You typically, you work at the LUN level. You don't have thousands of LUNs typically. So when you look at all the work that had to be done on the block side to support VVOLs and that, a lot of these block vendors had to do a lot to be able to support a lot more than they used to have. The file vendors typically were already working at the file level. So in most cases, they were already used to that number of objects on their back-end storage array. But for block, yeah, it's I think there's a lot of work that had to be done to really improve the amount of objects that you can support. And that really varies by vendor. I've looked at some of the implementations, and I just noted Dell recently was certified for VVOLs in the last week or two, and they were supporting a pretty low number. I thought it was around 1,000 or so. If you look at a typical VM, it's at least 3 VVOLs, could be more with snapshots and that. Not a huge number of VMs supported there. I know on our end, we support 64,000. Again, based on the number of snapshots you have, if you look potentially, and I did a post on my website the other day comparing VMFS maximums to VVOLs maximums. A single VM could potentially have thousands of VVOLs if you look at the number of snapshots you can have and the number of virtual disks that you can have on a VM, and you multiply all that out, there could be a lot of VVOLs for a single VM. Typically not going to be that number. Typically maybe under 10, but there's definitely a lot more objects that have to be supported on the back-end storage array. So every vendor, I think, if you look at them, they'll have a number of what they support today, VVOL objects. And I expect that to grow as a lot of these vendor implementations mature over time.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting question that just popped in my mind. So is VVOLs only for block storage? Or if you have an MFS array, can you use VVOLs?
Yeah, it's protocol agnostic. So essentially the protocol endpoint that's used for the VVOLs for the data path is essentially a protocol within a protocol. So it really puts all the protocols on a level playing field now, because they all have to operate at the VVOL specification, the VASA specification. And today where we have we have VMFS and the block storage array, and with NFS we have the NAS storage array that manages files there. It's all done the same way these days. vSphere is writing. We don't have a file system anymore. vSphere is writing those directly on the storage array as a VVOL object in a storage container. So the protocol is pretty. It takes some of those pros and cons and differences of the protocol out of the picture now, because everything's kind of done uniformly regardless of the protocol. Today, I've seen NFS, iSCSI, and fiber channel implementations across the vendors. I don't know if there's any FCOE yet, but it looks like all the vendors kind of support all the different protocols today.
So like vSAN, I know it had a limitation. I mean, you had to watch out for the number of objects and components, I think it was. So, and vSAN was kind of like VVOLs 1.0 almost. It was like the first production implementation of VVOLs. So
yeah,
the number of sub-LUNs you're talking about, and what do you call them, objects or data?
VVOL objects.
VVOL objects. So it's kind of the same thing there?
Yeah, you're right. vSAN was kind of it's the same architecture. One's for local storage, one's for shared storage, but they all have the same storage policy-based management engine that's used between them. They both don't use VMFS. They both write VMs as objects or directly onto storage. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities there. And yeah, I know, like you said, vSAN initially had that limitation on number of objects. But if you look at vSAN, you had much smaller scale. You had a single server that had those objects on it. So you typically wouldn't have a great number. A SAN on itself, it's got to support multiple hosts and all that. So the object support have to be a lot greater there because we're supporting, it's one big SAN. It's not like you have separate little, vSAN hosts all, running their own individual, containers there. So it's definitely the objects that are there has to be a lot more with external storage than it was with vSAN.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the uptake of VVOLs are. When it goes more mainstream there, whether businesses out there will wait for a storage hardware refresh, then basically use that as the opportunity to move do the live migration or the storage migration of the VMs across at that point, or whether they will attempt to do any firmware upgrades to allow for VVOLs on existing systems. It'll be interesting to see sort of how cautiously people will play. I guess it'll depend on the business and budgets and all that type of thing. But that'll be an interesting space to look out for.
Yeah, I predicted it'll be slow on that. There's a lot of people, when anything new comes out, they typically don't jump in, and that, especially when it's something fairly different and that. And with storage, you got all that migration stuff you have to do. So, VVOLs is essentially 1.0, right? As today. You remember vSAN is 1.0, and it had some growing pains and with some feature gaps and all that stuff. So, I expect the next version of vSphere with the more mature implementation of VVOLs will probably be at the point, kind of the tipping point where, just like with vSAN, that, people start to give it a more serious look and, start to make that migration over.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the requirement to upgrade to vSphere 6, I mean, that's one hurdle, and then just understanding the new way of doing things for the storage admin, and then making actually the migration, and like you talked about, there's a few features that still need to be compatible, like replication and SRM. So yeah, there's a little bit of a hurdle there.
Now, if you look at the one, I think, shining feature of VVOLs that it provides is, actually two, is the automatic space reclamation now, where as the storage array can see VMs as objects, we can automatically reclaim space right away. We don't have to go to ESX CLI commands to try to create balloon files and reclaim space the old manual way that's resource intensive. We can reclaim space right away now. We know exactly when a VM is deleted, when a VM moves, because we have visibility into the VM object. So all that automatic space reclamation is all automatic now. Don't have to worry about trying to reclaim space manually. The other is snapshots, which are done differently with VVOL, which is pretty cool now the way we're doing it. With traditional way with VMFS, you froze your original base disk, you created Delta files, and those Delta files held all the changes that were made after you created that point-in-time snapshot. And then when you deleted that snapshot, you had to merge all those Delta files back into that original base disk, which is pretty resource-intensive, especially if it's been around there for a long time. And that, so there's a lot of overhead there on the host. With VVOLs, it's the opposite. Now, when we take a snapshot, it's automatically a storage array snapshot. You don't have the option to take a when you take the snapshot in the vSphere client, it's only on the storage array. And what happens is we're not freezing that base virtual disk anymore. We're essentially still writing data directly to that base virtual disk. And the Delta files, the Delta VVOLs that get created contain the original data in that. So now when I go and delete that snapshot, I just get rid of those Delta files, and my disk is already live. I don't have to merge anything back in. So that it's a lot more efficient doing it that way as well, which is another, I think, a good thing with VVOLs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That is a big benefit. And then, storage policy-based management is actually really cool, where it's more of a VM, application-centric approach to managing your storage. So you've got an application, you want it to have higher performance or higher greater redundancy. With vSAN, you can change those policies and the storage adapts on the fly. Is that the same with VVOLs?
Yeah, you're kind of, building the policies kind of a la carte. I pick and choose the features I want, apply them to VMs and that. Where previously, if I wanted to, take a snapshot at the storage array level, I had to snap that entire LUN. Maybe I didn't want all those VM snap, or other kind of storage array features that I had to apply at the LUN level. Now with the policy-based management, I can kind of pick and choose and be a la carte. Create this policy that has these features, these hardware capabilities, another policy for this and that, and then apply those to VMs. And then the storage policy-based management engine, ensures compliance there, and allows me to get a lot more granular with how I apply those storage array features directly to VM. So it's definitely a powerful tool now that really empowers the storage admin to really get a lot more fine-grained control of storage resources, and kind of build out policies however they want and assign them to VMs.
Definitely. So many compelling reasons there, I think, to take a serious look at VVOLs, definitely. Even in its sort of, first iteration. It's just, like you say, Eric, I think the pros far outweigh the cons. And, even if people wait for the first, or the second major release, it's, it's definitely, there's so many benefits in doing that. It's exciting. But just like you're saying before, I want to get it spun up in my lab and, if possible, try and get a VSA of it and start playing around with it a little bit more.
Synology or iOmega or one of those vendors going to support VVOLs. Give us home labbers a chance to try it out.
Yeah, I think we'll be looking at more at a major vendors VSA, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the places you might check it out is, I'm just curious, I haven't done it myself, but I'm guessing VMware's Hands-On Labs has VVOL support?
Yeah, I know NetApp has a HOL in there that has VVOLs. There's a lot of demos online too on that. So if you want to see on my website, I have a VVOLs landing page with links, and there's tons of links sorted by vendors. So if you're interested in what information on a particular vendor's implementation, I have them categorized like that. So so go there, and I got a ton of links there on VVOLs that can help you learn. And I think VMware does have some type of labs built around it. I was talking to one of their tech marketing guys, and they had that simulator that they built to be able to support labs. I know the VMware guys are asking us about our VSA. Hey, do you guys support VVOLs? Because they're looking to leverage something as well. But I think they built a simulator that allowed them to kind of do it in a lab environment so people can get hands-on with it without having a storage array that supports it.
Very cool. Very cool.
That sounds like your page there, Eric's one to look out for and keep tabs on for anything VVOLs related.
Yeah, I also did a post that gave you all sorts of reasons why you'd want to wait to actually implement VVOLs, and all the reasons why you would want to do it right now, and that kind of weighed all the pros and cons of VVOLs, and that was kind of hit it from both sides of the coin, and that, and kind of gave you a full view of what to expect with VVOLs.
Cool, yeah. One of the hands-on labs is number 1429. It is on VVOLs. It doesn't say what storage, infrastructure they have behind it, but yeah, it might be a good resource to check out. Lots of great resources out there. I'll have to check out your webpage as well, Eric. So,
and actually, I've got to jump back on. It's been ages since I've actually had a look at VMware's hands-on lab environment. So I bet they've got some great stuff in there now since I've last checked. So I'll add that to my to-do list.
Are you still involved with developing HOLs for EMC?
Not for those ones, no, not for for
Okay.
VMworld or VMware at all. No.
Okay.
I gave that up about 2 years ago. So
okay.
yeah, and I'm no longer involved with doing the hands-on labs for EMC World either. There's actually a team,
Okay.
so it's a distributed team, predominantly East Coast for the infrastructure. And the content creation team predominantly based over in Cork in Ireland. So they, like VMware's hands-on lab environment, EMC has its own. And so that's anything EMC related. There's a hands-on lab for it. Which is quite amazing when you look at things. I'm always quite blown away because you've got things like the VMAX, what have you, and that's and a few heavy hitters like that, and the back end resource and the virtualized instances of those that they have just purely they're not designed for prime time or anything like that. They've purely just been created for these lab environments, so people can get hands-on time with them. There's some decent resource allocated to them, but it's good. It means people can get in there, have a play around, and because quite often that you'd find it yourself, wouldn't you, Eric? I mean, quite often there's not too many of these, the higher ticket items kicking around that you can sort of get lab time with at any stage. At least the physical versions of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to get my hands on some of the gear, and it's hard to get.
Yeah. Hey, so speaking of gear, I mean, what have you guys anything new in your labs or in your man caves there at all?
I got the new Asus big boy router, the AC, the RT-AC. I think it's 86 or 87. It's their 4 antenna big power one, and that I was getting sick of. My man cave's on one side of the house, downstairs in the basement. So the Wi-Fi, and I had the other Asus router, the N66 one, which worked pretty good, but kind of weak signal on the one side of the house. So this thing is a beast, and it puts out a lot of power in that. And I looked, and there's a ton of routers now that have all kind of the AC stuff with mega antennas and that. The D-Link one, if you've seen, it looks like the Death Star and that. All these antennas bristling out of it and that. So I bought the Zeus mainly because I like their software and that. I like their interface and really good mods for it and that. The Merlin mod for your Zeus routers is awesome because they take the stock code base, it's open source, and they apply some extra enhancements on top of it and that. So you're not just ripping and replacing the code and that. You're essentially using the same code that's been enhanced. And they kind of stay parallel to the Zeus code streams and that. So really like the Zeus routers and that. And that thing's been really good in that. Really got me some good Wi-Fi in the house finally.
Yeah, it's a good looking bit of kit I see up on the shelf there. Lots of blinky lights, a lot of antennas.
Yeah.
So I suppose you're slowly radiating yourself there. So
I'm sure.
You just put your lunch up there, and by lunchtime it's cooked.
I got that, and I got a microcell right next to it and that. So I got radiation overload.
Well, so speaking of access points, actually, I've literally turned up today. Actually, was this guy? So ubiquity. Always have trouble pronouncing it. A Unify.
It's like
access
a
point
smoke detector
for home, or doubles as a flying saucer or a frisbee. Basically, power over Ethernet, which is nice. The issue I had is. I pretty much only have one Apple-based machine now. I've predominantly gone back to Windows-based everything, and I was finding that my Airport Express I had across home was good. The coverage wasn't excellent, but my Windows-based machines or laptops were having trouble connecting to it. And I don't know whether it's because it's an Apple device or a difference in protocols or what. Well, no, the same protocols or what it was. But it's one of the old style Airport Expresses, so it's getting on in years now. And it's had so many trips round the world with me as I've been to these different events. So I decided to swap it out finally. Did a bit of research online. Like the look of this. Literally before we started recording this, I just finished configuring it up over lunch. And a fantastic interface on it. And it's the type of thing it's designed for, either home, but, prosumer or enterprise rollout of these. I mean, they're relatively quite cheap. I mean, these are about well, for the functionality, they're cheap anyway. There was about £50 or thereabouts. But the interface you get with this, let's say you want to expand it at any stage, or let's say you're on a campus or a hotel or in an office environment, you just add more of these, and then it detects it, and you just push profiles out to them, and it'll monitor that. You can overlay where they are onto a topology map, or a physical floor map of your office, and it'll monitor it. You can have up to, I think it's 4 different Wi-Fi networks running on each access point as well. So you can set up a guest network, which is what I'm doing, as well as my primary.
It's essentially
a lot of functionality there.
Takes your existing Wi-Fi signal and extends it, repeats it?
Yeah, it does that. Sorry, people watching this, the network guys out there be screaming at this at this point, but I can't remember what it's called. But there is a term whereby it's basically roaming. So you can roam around with your laptop and it'll just move from one access point to the next seamlessly. I can't remember what it's called. It's annoying me. I always know what it's called on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, yeah, it's basically Wi-Fi roaming when you've got more than one of these. So it'll always hone into the nearest one or the access point with the strongest signal for you. And so yeah.
Yeah, I had this little pyramid thing, which is a Nazus one. That's essentially a repeater, and that allows you to kind of extend your Wi-Fi. And I had mixed results with it and you could hardwire this as well, and that, which I did over the power line stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's just, to me, it was, rather than having all of the multiple devices and that, one big honking one that you don't have to have multiple things set up. So
yeah,
on that. But yeah, there's definitely for different use cases, different things that fit the bill.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've gone power line entirely at home. So the office here, I don't have Wi-Fi anymore because it's quite a small office, and I'm trying to be as healthy as I can these days. So without frying myself sitting next to an access point, which I was previously. The other reason I went for this as well, you can actually schedule when the Wi-Fi radio turns off and on as well, which is pretty cool. So at night I have it turn off, switch itself off over at home there. I mean, it's I have it near the near our bedroom. That's where it normally is. So I get it to turn off about 10 o'clock at night. It'll turn itself on again at 7 or 8 in the morning. So yeah, it's quite nice, sort of bit of Wi-Fi radio signal downtime as you sleep, as it were. So yeah, that's the other reason I went for that.
Too. You just put it on your wall and.
Yeah, I mean, Power over Ethernet is amazing. It comes with like all the plates and everything. You just mount it to the wall, the ceiling, and because you're just talking a single cable with PoE there, it's ideal. You can actually make it quite discreet. So yeah, first impressions have been very impressed with it. Very impressed indeed. So, yep, got to get that implemented after work.
Cool stuff.
Nice.
I have to check that out.
Both you got, David? Anything cool?
Yeah. I mean, I've almost gotten rid of all my. Well, I have gotten rid of all my physical lab servers now, and I've got a new iMac 5K with 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte, PCI flash, and it runs an incredible, for me at least, vSphere Lab, all in a single box. And so it's been working pretty well. I did buy a new Synology, the DS1513 Plus, which is a really, really nice little, SMB home SAN NAS.
How many drives does that one have?
It's got
6 drives?
Yeah. No, 5 drives.
Oh, 5, okay.
5 drives, yeah. So right now I've got four disks in there, 4 3 terabyte Western Digital drives, and then I'm going to take a flash, an SSD flash drive out of one of my other systems and put in there for caching. So
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. But really, I haven't been using it for home lab. I've just been using it as a giant file store, among other things. So it's amazing what you can do now. In fact, I think that'd be a great topic for our next show. The evolving, vSphere home lab, what you can do now on a single machine, or I know
in the cloud.
Yeah, in the cloud. Rebello Systems recently gave all vExperts, access to their vSphere Amazon online lab. So that's something pretty cool for
vCloud Air and.
Yeah, there's so many different options now. So yeah, I think that'd be a cool episode for our next show.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, three very distinct options there now. Standalone ESXi hosts, or basically nested ESXi instances on Fusion or Workstation. And then, like you say, you've got the cloud options as well. So definitely pros and cons with all of those. And yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely swaying towards the cloud the more and more as time progresses and costs drop. But that'll be a great topic indeed. And talking of storage there, actually, yeah, I was looking at the Synologies the other day as well. I've got an old iAmega PX4, a 4-disk model, obviously, being the PX4. But yeah, I'm pretty much at capacity on that, and getting a little bit worried because it runs 24/7. The disks in there, they're not like their WD Reds that are designed to run 24/7. So it's a bit of a ticking time bomb at the moment, but I've got all my data on there, and I'm kind of thinking whether it's time to upgrade to another machine, because if this one died tomorrow, it would probably involve, because it's out of warranty, it would involve buying a new machine. Obviously, it's not like I could take the drive straight out, put it in a Synology, and I think Synology would be my next pick for a home type storage device. But the only thing putting me off, obviously, is price and budget. I have no budget for anything else at the moment. This is about as far as it goes. So I might have to wait till the budget increases and the deal comes through on the Synologies. I was on the website, though. The one I was looking at was the 1515 Plus. I thought that looked quite nice. That's a 5-bay model as well, with all the bells and whistles. And what I liked about it as well, you can do it's not an official, an official function of the device itself, but you can get it to actually run with Crash Plan, which would be ideal. So I use Crash Plan for backing up everything, all my data and machines at home here. I've got an unlimited, all-you-can-eat Crash Plan account, and actually it just expired again, and I've just signed up for another 4 years with them. But yeah, apparently there is a mod you can do for it. Yeah, that looks really similar to that.
It is 1515, sorry.
Yeah. So that is exactly what I'm looking at. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you can get something called, I think it is the 1513 or the 1512, which is the expansion case for that.
Oh, wow, and four Ethernet ports. That's pretty, in USB 3.
I'm pulling a Simon right here. Get up out.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then you've got 2 eSATA ports at the bottom there as well. So if you want to, add expansion on that, that's obviously pretty good. One thing I would have quite liked to have seen on it is I used to use the Drobos attached via USB, which I quite liked because I could back it up using things like Crash Plan, because it showed up as an attached drive, so you could still back it up rather than NAS boxes, which you can't from your PC at all. So it'd be I'd kind of like a device where you can use as a NAS and a DAS as well at the same time. For that, but then again, if I can get this Crash Plan mod running on it, then that's all those problems go away. But yeah, like I say, I'll just got to start saving.
Yeah, Chris Wall has a post on connecting Synology to Amazon S3, I think, for backup.
Yeah, I think that's officially supported now. I think.
Yeah.
I know. There's about 2 or 3 cloud providers that you can connect and back up to. Using that, but there seems a very strong community around the Synologies as well, which I quite like.
It has, so many different apps. I mean, for home video sharing, music sharing, photo sharing, just all these things you can do with it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, everyone, I've spoken to always, raves and speaks very highly of them. So, yeah.
I had one as well. So yeah, they're full featured. All the features, they support a ton of different things, protocols, all that stuff. So
yeah,
they're definitely nice units.
Your biggest problem, though, Eric's going to be finding it in one of those many boxes you've got still to unpack.
Yeah, somewhere around. Well, good. Well, we got a topic for next week then. We'll talk more about storage and for our home labs.
Yeah, definitely. Topics near and dear to our own hearts.
Sounds good, guys. Well, I appreciate your time today. We had a lot of good tech talk, and I look forward to the next show.
Yep, definitely.
Great.
Talk to you real soon.
See you guys. Until
Thanks,
then.
guys.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.